Hello.
Hey,
How are you?
I am doing great. How are you?
I am doing wonderful, wonderful.
That's good.
How
Are you
was your
here to? I'm sorry.
How was your day?
It was pretty good. It was kind of a busy one, but it was good.
Yeah, same here. I returned to campus this
Oh,
week for the first time. In 51 weeks.
oh wow.
Yeah, an adjustment in schedule for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. And at this time, after everything.
After everything. So we were initially supposed to return last Tuesday, but because of the storm,
Oh, they
we
pushed it.
yes, yes, yes. So I see we have some ladies coming in, and I just want us to get settled in and allow a couple people to come in. And we've
Yeah.
already sort of mentioned last week, so we can definitely talk a little bit about the storm. So you're in Houston.
Yes, I am.
How was your experience there?
It was like nothing I've seen before, honestly. We were all excited about the snow, not knowing that, what was going to come after that. And I actually think that my family was very, very blessed in all of it because we lost power, but it wasn't for very long. A lot of my friends lost power for days, and at the time when it's colder than usual, the
Uh,
temperatures were in like the 30s or even colder than that. So it was really trying and scary for people with young kids, especially. But thankfully, thank God, I think most people's power has been restored by now and they're doing pretty well.
yeah,
So,
yes,
yeah,
absolutely. So you have young kids as well?
I do. I
Yes.
have three kids. My oldest is 7, then I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Mm. Yeah, so we were at home as well, and we have a 7-year-old and an 18-month-old.
Oh,
And all I could think about was the 18-month-old. Our power did go out. We lost power on that Monday for about 8 hours.
oh wow.
And a toddler just runs around.
Yeah.
So I'm like, once it gets so cold, I'm not gonna be able to stop her from running around. So luckily it came back on that night. And
Okay.
that's the same thing we did. Just it never went off again from that
Hmm.
Monday. So that was very fortunate. But we were always on guard.
Yeah.
Didn't have any pipes freeze, but just watching it on social media and
Yeah.
the news, it was just
Hmm.
crazy.
It sure was. I just and people are still dealing with the mess of it. My oldest has been out of school. They're not going to go back till tomorrow
Mm,
because there's damage at the school. And even though she's doing virtual schooling this year, still I guess maybe teachers were affected. So it's really touched a lot of people.
yes, yes, yes. So yeah, when someone asks how we doing, I'm like, we literally survived the storm, and
Yeah.
it could have been worse. So I'm glad that you and your family were covered, and we'll just have to continue to pray for everyone in the area who's been affected, and hope that they get the
Hmm.
aid that they need to move forward as soon as
Exactly.
possible. Yes.
Definitely.
Well, I want to thank you for joining me tonight for a live girl chat. I sincerely appreciate it. I've just recently launched the Brownstone Experience, which is a fashion, wellness, and beauty experience inside of the Black woman community. And the intention is for women to be able to find a place that can uplift their normal, daily, busy lives. I know that your mission as well is to assist busy corporate professional women with their health to make sure that they prioritize it. So I thought that your mission
Exactly.
was perfectly aligned. In January, we focused on spirituality and self care. And this month, we focused on health and holistic living. We
Oh.
had Amber on the first girls chat, and she shared what our plate should look like, right? So it was more from a
Ooh.
dietary perspective, which is
Hmm.
always a journey, right?
Oh
Um,
yes.
that's one side of it. And
Hmm.
then I definitely think that the wellness portion of it, coming from you, a board certified physician, will definitely carry a lot of weight and hopefully be able to help someone who's listening in.
Oh
So,
yeah.
and thank you
Thank
so much.
Thank you for inviting me. I love brownstone. I just kind of stumbled across it when I saw one of my friends doing her yoga on it on your page. So I just started kind of looking at the all your posts, and I just love what you're doing. I think it's going to be amazing as it
Thank
continues to grow.
Yes, thank you, thank you. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about, and it's sort of tough, right, to talk about, for me at least, being a working mom, wife, and career woman, prioritizing our health.
Mhm.
So where do you think, the pandemic was like this huge reset in our lives, right?
Yes.
Where do you think we can start if we, maybe at the beginner's level,
Mhm.
or even, major changes from having a baby to, like I said, I have 18 months. So just where do you think is a good place for busy women to start?
So that's a great question, and one that I actually hear a lot, because when you think about all the different things that you could change about yourself or that you probably should change about yourself, it starts to get overwhelming. I mean, there's from diet to sleeping to just all these different things. So I always tell everyone, just start where you are. Pick one thing that you can start working on today, not tomorrow, but today. And of course, you have a lot of things you can choose from, but just choose one thing. And for most people, I like to say start with, first of all, realizing that you have to be a priority. And it's especially hard to tell this to the mothers who feel like, well, I have to spend my life, I have to take care of everybody else, I have to, or the wives, or even people working. You feel like you have to take care of the company or the business, and you're always giving, giving, giving. But I always say that you can't pour from an empty cup. That's a common saying. So there has to be something there. You have to pour into yourself in order to be able to do all those things. And if you don't take care of yourself, then nobody's going to take care of all these people that you're hoping you can take care of. I meet a lot of women who are just running on empty, and they just keep pushing it. They just say, I can. I heard a lady the other day say, I've been getting away with only doing 4 hours of sleep a night for a
Yeah,
long time. And she's like, I can make it. And I'm like, but for how long? And
yeah.
even if you think you're making it, you don't know the harm that you're doing to your body. I think
Mhm.
about like a car. We take care of our cars. We go for regular maintenance appointments for the cars, get the oil changed, all that. Now you can let your oil go down and you can keep pushing that car as far as you can get on it, right? And you may be able to go another 100 miles or maybe another year of driving with it. But at some point, you're going to witness the consequences of that action. And it's not going to be a simple oil change to fix it. It's going to be you've now damaged the carburetor. I don't know, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever the actual term of the car is, but it becomes more serious than that versus if you had stayed on the regular maintenance and you were taking it for these checkups and getting the oil changed regularly, then the car can last and it can stay healthy. So it's the same thing with our bodies. When we neglect it and we just keep trying to push ourselves to do whatever we can, whatever we can get away with, we're eventually going to feel the consequences of that. And in some cases, it can be very serious. This is February is actually Heart Healthy Month. And
Mhm.
it's important because heart disease, cardiovascular disease, or heart and vessel disease is the number one killer of women. And Black women especially are affected. And a lot of times we don't present in the same way that other people do.
Mhm.
So here we have this issue that most people don't even know that they're at risk for. And then you don't have the same presentation, which sets you up to even do more poorly with it.
Mhm.
So it's just it's a good time to remind everyone to start making yourself a priority and taking care of your health, doing the little things. So like I said, back to your original question, pick one thing. I would say, you could say if you're not sleeping long enough, pick a bedtime and force yourself to stick to it. And once you've done it for a week and then you push yourself to the next week, then it becomes a habit and you actually will want to do that. It's just that initial start. It's always the hardest to get started. I
Yes.
think about I went to school in Iowa, so there's a lot of snow there. So we used to make snowballs and stuff. So it's always hardest starting that snowball. But once, especially if you're like pushing it down a hill, like trying to get it going, but once it goes, the momentum just pushes it. And it's the same thing with our health. If we can push ourselves to develop these habits early on,
Mhm.
then they suddenly will become easier. You'll start to actually want to do it. You start to enjoy doing it. And
Mhm.
that's when you'll start seeing the benefits of it.
Yes, yes. pick one thing
Mhm.
that stuck out to me that you just mentioned is sleep, right? So
Yes.
we can relate. So moms, you have so much on your plate. So can you tell me, is it six minimum? I know eight is ideal, right?
Yes,
Is
exactly.
six minimum or is it seven?
Honestly, it depends on the person. If you wake up after 6 hours and you're energized and you're ready to go, then six is probably fine for you. But I would say for most people, you probably need that seven. And even then, really, it would be nice if you could get eight.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually just had this talk on Clubhouse recently because someone was telling me how, like I mentioned, she was just getting by with 4 or 5 hours of sleep every night. And I just started explaining to her that you have to see sleep as vital. There are actually certain processes in your body that only happen when you're sleeping. So you are
Yeah.
depriving yourself of these processes. And over time, it's going to build up, it's going to cause issues. One example of that is that while you're sleeping, short-term memory becomes some parts of short-term memory become long-term memory. So people that tell me I have problems remembering things, and I ask them, well, how much are you sleeping? And usually that's a big part of it. And sleep also affects, it makes you, if you don't sleep, you can be hungrier. I mean, there's just so many aspects of sleep, and it just gets so overlooked because people are just trying to make it on the bare minimum, not realizing that they're missing out on so many of the other benefits that a good night rest would give them. And I'm preaching to myself because I'm so serious because like I said, we just had to talk about it on Clubhouse, and I was just like, wow, the night before that, I had gone to bed at like 2 a.m. because as a busy mom, I feel like the evening is my time to actually sit down and work, especially with the kids out of school and just having to do a lot of that. But I just realized I had to be more disciplined in myself. And if I want my body to stay healthy and I want to be productive during the day, I have to make myself go to sleep. Even I have to say, I'm just going to have to do this in the morning. I'm not going to continue pushing on knowing that I'm depriving my body of all these processes that I need to go through with sleep. So I hear your question, and I understand, especially with a young one, an 18-month-old, it
Yeah.
can be hard, but you just got to make it a priority.
Yes, yes. So let's talk about priorities now. Again, in the pandemic, a lot of priorities shifted. I know for me, definitely shifted. Right. So coming home in the house now, with the kids, with the husband, and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So making wellness the priority. Um, and then I've been reading, all of these statistics about, how many working moms are leaving the workforce, and just the strain on parents nowadays with kids in the home. So, what
Mm-hmm.
would you say? How should we approach? So, you've already told us to think about one thing, but how do we look at it in the pandemic, right? With gyms and just going out is a whole mental exercise.
Yes, you're right. And it's not easy, first of all. And then the added stress and pressure of the pandemic has just made it even more challenging. But it's still very important. And I think the thing I
Absolutely.
always tell people, especially the busy working mom, is that you have to find help. You have to find your village. You physically can't do it all. And, they always say you can't have it all, or, whatever the saying is, but
Yeah.
you can, just not all at the same time.
Right.
Basically, there's this myth that we have to be the super mom, and it's not true. So I always tell everyone, make sure your partner is involved. Get the husband working.
Yeah,
I told my husband, I said, look, I have to be on IG Live tonight. He's
that's
like,
right.
don't worry, I'll get the kids in bed. And I'm like, see, that's the kind of support
Yeah,
we need.
look at their heart. So they like this.
Yes, I'm but it's real. Like you have to have that help. You can't do everything by yourself. So having a partner, and then on top of that, also get the help that you need outside of that. So if cleaning is not your thing and you can afford help to help you clean, then do it. I used to feel really guilty about that. But now I look at it as I am supporting the economy because that's somebody's job. I'm helping get them more business. And on top of that, the time that I would spend, it would take me all day on a Saturday to clean the whole house, where I can hire somebody, they bring their 4 people in and they're done in an hour. I mean,
Yeah,
it just obviously doesn't make sense not to do that way if I can afford it.
Yeah.
So, hey, I will save up
Yes.
so that I can make sure that I can do that so that I can spend that day that I would have spent cleaning with my kids or with my husband and in a way that is more I'm able to make it more quality time. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say, first of all, make sure your spouse is supportive. Secondly, hire whatever help you need. And then on top of that, take breaks, like set some boundaries. Not everything has
Yeah.
to be done. So even if, let's say, you do, Saturday is your day to clean something, if you're not feeling, if you're exhausted and you just can't do it, set that boundary. Say, hey, I need to go take a nap or I need to take a break and show yourself some grace.
Yeah.
Everything doesn't have to be perfect. I always tell people, like, my house is rarely clean. Like, there are toys everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the kids just constantly mess up. And I'm not gonna go crazy trying to make sure everything is perfectly situated. I should say it's not that it's dirty. It's clean. It's just not tidy because their
Yes.
stuff is everywhere.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that. I'm really not gonna stress about it because in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. My kids are happy, they're healthy. We are happy and healthy in this stage of life. And it really is just a season. When they get older and they're more able to keep their stuff tidy, it's not going to look like this. So I'm okay with it. So
Yeah.
being able to just show yourself grace during this time too. Those are kind of my tips for being able to prioritize yourself and kind of even in the midst of everything going on now.
Yes, yes. It's funny, you're a medical doctor, but a lot of your advice is still just around giving yourself grace, right? At
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day, because that may sound like, wisdom is definitely contributes to your mental health. But
Mm-hmm.
if you literally don't take that phrase for granted and practice it, it'll turn into a true physical issue.
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, I think that is the key. And whatever season you're in, embrace it. So
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, how do you think as far as our keeping up our our yearly checkups and everything in the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, we're on the tail end of it now, so we should be able to
Yes.
just move forward with everything. You think?
Exactly. So tail end, I think
And
is very hopeful.
yeah,
No, and I really do hope we are, but there's been so much pushback about the vaccine that honestly, I don't know where we're going to be with this. Um, there was an article saying Dr. Fauci was just saying that we may be still wearing masks in 2022.
mhm,
So I think that things are definitely getting better, and I think things will start being open more as more people get vaccines. But I think that back to completely normal, maybe a little bit further than we imagine. However, we should not neglect to take care of ourselves and to go to those appointments. So if you missed your yearly mammogram last year because you were afraid of catching COVID in your doctor's office, this is a year to go. All
yeah,
right. It is much more important that we stay on top of these issues that could become something much bigger, and that if they're caught earlier, we'll be able to take care of them. I actually did a video last year about it, just talking about how so many people are going to die from COVID that never actually get the vaccine. And the reason for that is because they weren't going to see their doctors. They were having chest pain and staying at home. People having heart attacks at home.
mm,
All these things that you should be going to see someone. You should be going to the emergency room. People are just really afraid to even go
mm,
to the emergency room if they're having these symptoms. But I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. If you have an emergent issue, you need to go there because we always look at the risk versus the benefits. And yes, there's a risk of catching COVID there, but there's also the bigger risk of you having a heart attack and dying at home.
mhm,
So I think it's so important to also remind people to get back into the habit of going to see their gynecologist, their primary care doctor. Don't let your diabetes get out of control or your hypertension. Don't just stop taking your medicine and not worry about it because that could cause a stroke. There are all these kind of seemingly minor issues when we have this big pandemic going on, but they're still very, very important. So we should not neglect that. And if you did last year, you got to pass. But this year, this is our year to get back in line and get on schedule with the things that we need to do. So I want everybody to go check in with your at least your primary care doctor this year. Let's at least check in there because there are all these statistics that say that, let's say for example, this is, like I said, it's heart awareness month. And there was a statistic that says that about almost 50% of African American women over the age of 25 have some form of heart disease, which is crazy.
Wow.
Almost 50%. And there was a even more shocking one that it said, I think more than half of them don't know. They have no idea. So they could be walking around, let's say hypertension is probably the most common one. And because there are no symptoms of it until it's later way down the line, a lot of people walk around with these high blood pressures at levels that could cause a stroke and could cause immediate death or the consequences of a stroke, not being able to move your arms, your just a lot of issues. So,
Yeah.
and that's something that going to your primary care, they're going to check your blood pressure. They're going to screen you for diabetes. They're going to do all these things to try and make sure that you don't have these issues. Or if you do, catch them early to where we can start interventions so you don't develop them. So
Hmm.
that's why I want to just really encourage everybody. Let this be the year that we all go back and at least check in with your primary care doctor.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much for that. Look, if we're listening, we can't say that anybody tell us.
That's right. Yeah, don't say nobody told you.
Yes. And so ladies, if you have any questions, ladies and men, if you have any questions, you can drop them in the chat. Um, I'm going to summarize like always. I appreciate Dr. Oluchi's advice tonight. I know I definitely got some gems and I hope you guys did too. Um, Picking one thing a day is the first thing that you gave us. What can we start on tomorrow, right? So we're going to get our sleep tonight. And what can we
Yes.
start on tomorrow? And then reaching out to our village is
Mhm.
important, right? That
Yes.
support. Asking that spouse to wash those dishes or whatever we need them to do, right?
Yep.
Whatever your village looks like, reach out to your village to make sure that you can prioritize yourself. Take breaks and give yourself some grace. Setting those boundaries,
Mhm.
setting those boundaries, right? A nap on Saturday when you decide not to clean, all of that is fine. Let's not all carry it all on our shoulders. And so, again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of this advice sounds like more like wisdom than medical advice. But if we don't prioritize ourselves as Black
Mhm.
women, women of color, it will turn into something major. So I receive it.
Exactly.
And I appreciate you. It doesn't look like we got any questions in the chat yet or tonight at all. So I thank you for your time.
Of course, of course. I just wanted to share one more thing though.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a very practical way of where to start, especially with a lot of people working from home or being home more often, movement is very, very important. And when I say movement, I'm not just talking about exercise. So a lot of people really focus on, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have 2 hours of my day to like put into doing this big exercise routine, but not realizing that just your movement throughout the day is actually so much more important than your exercise. There have been some studies recently that showed that people that sit for like 8 hours a day or more than that have an increased risk. It's directly correlates to an increased risk of heart disease, diabetes, and all these chronic illnesses that we used to always say were just associated with diet and things like that. But now just not moving enough or sitting in one place for such a long period of time. So I just have been on this mission to really encourage people, get up. Even if you're working from home, make sure you're standing up at least once an hour, moving around. Just stand up for 2 minutes, walk in place or go to the restroom, come back a couple times, take the long way, move around. But especially as we're working from home, it can be so easy to just stay in one place and you look up and you've been in that same seat for
Yeah,
10
yeah,
hours,
yeah.
and especially if you're really focused on work. So make a conscious effort to get up and move around throughout the day and at least a couple minutes every single hour. And that is actually will burn more energy and do much better for you than focusing on trying to get that hour in of exercise in the morning or whenever. So Just move.
Yes, yes. Up, there's the quote for our chat. Just move,
Yes.
and so it doesn't have to be a lot of guesswork in where we can
Hmm.
start tomorrow. Getting up and moving, right?
Yes.
So let's make that a goal. That tomorrow we at least try, because I know your watch or your Fitbit, it'll alert you every hour, but there, we have to use our tools to walk
Hmm.
around. So
Exactly.
yes, yes.
Yes.
All righty. Well, you have a great, great night. And again,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate you. And we're going to keep our residents, our neighbors in our prayers in
Yes.
Texas.
Yes. Sounds good. And thank you so much for inviting me tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you. You have a good night.
You too.
Bye
Bye.
bye.